So, from the beginning of the year, we always talk a lot about new resolution. And I was thinking now that we are in March and that from January, from February. But if you notice well, if you're going to the gym, for instance, or if you're subscribing to something, and you see in the first month, in January, in February, it starts already fading. But in the first month, there are so many people that are, so committed and they are there every day. And they repeat the pattern every single day of showing up, of being very committed to their new 2026 resolution indeed. Or 2025 if it was last year, and you remark this pattern also last year. But generally it's like this, is you take this resolution, and when the motivation starts fading a little bit, you lose this kind of good resolution that you promised yourself that you were going to do and to keep an improvement in the future. So that's why my first thought was, when I thought about what I'm gonna talk to you this week, and honestly, I might share with them some habits that I try to implement for 2026, and a few habits for the month of March, and you might continue in the future. So there is something interesting when you think about habits. Habits, it's not something that announces itself. It's not like resolution that, I'm going to do this, I'm taking like this resolution. No, because habits, it's something that, resolution, it's something that you told yourself you were going to do, so it demands a lot of attention to put like processes. You need to realize that you took this resolution and change. But normally habits, they don't demand attention. And this is the thing that you do daily, quietly, and that just shape your life without you even necessarily realizing it. And most of the time, we don't really realizing them until we wake up one day, and we wake up one day and we realize, wow, okay, I'm exactly where I want to be, and this kind of habits I took, and or maybe just wake up one day and you're like, oh, actually, I'm really far from where I imagine myself to be right now, and maybe I'm not feeling going in the right direction anymore. Maybe I must change my habits. So if I really wanted to hook you, I would tell you, okay, I'm gonna share exactly the habits that might change your life forever, and that are gonna make successful and like a billionaire within like the end of this video, right? And that will like completely change your life. But you know me, if you watch some of my previous video, that's not my style, and that wouldn't be true to tell you this. But the thing I'm certain, and what is true, is that actually you already have habits into your life that you are not necessarily conscious about it, but you already have habits that kind of like give you a certain direction of your life right now. And this is this kind of habits that I really want to talk with you today. And I just hope you could give me a chance for 30 or for the 30 next minutes of your day, or if you're doing workout, or if you're just like walking outside, just because I'm gonna share with you some habits that are very personal to me and that I decided to apply to me in for the coming month. But I do think they can also be very powerful for you, and that's a really powerful tool to also have this ability to reflect on some habits, that you put for yourself, for your future self. So hi, this is Emma, this is Client Talks, and welcome back to a new episode. So as I was saying in the premise of my video, we are still, in March, we are still in Q1, we are still in the first month of the year, and this is generally where the motivation that you can have at the beginning of the year, a good resolution that you put in place, can have a tendency to fade in, and motivation might slow a little bit, and when your reality, or you kind of thing that you are doing in the past or not doing actually kind of come back to replace the good intention that you wanted to put in place at first. And this is exactly why I decided to write this episode, and why I decided to talk to you about it, because I think this is exactly in this moment of your life that habits would matter actually at the end of the day the most. Because that's the thing with habits, are not something extremely creative. So especially if you're someone that tend to be very creative and always constantly with ideas into your mind, habits are something kind of like very square, and they are not something very spontaneous, and they are something that kind of have to be kind of rigorous a little bit, and that's kind of build up when something feels natural or very ordinary, and that could feel a bit like a routine and a bit boring at some point. It could also be very different than some for some culture, and this is in their daily habits to be less spontaneous and very quick and having this very strict time to eat. And some culture might be maybe more flexible and very spontaneous culture, and it's maybe harder maybe to put like some really strong habit that you want to keep in if you are coming from like this kind of environment. The first thing with habits is when I'm telling you it could be kind of rigid, or that's also sometimes a misunderstood that we can have with habits in general, because it shouldn't be a strict routine. Like, it shouldn't be something too rigid. It shouldn't be something that you feel extremely scheduled, extremely heavy on your shoulder. Something that takes even, or give you this feeling to take your freedom away. That shouldn't be the goal, and you shouldn't feel habits are about restriction, but you should feel more that habits are about direction. And really the direction where you want to go, the direction that guides you toward the life you say you want it for your future self, or you see yourself in the future. And as I was telling before, the truth is you already have habits. Everyone does. So the question here, in this episode, is not if you have them or not. The question is whether these habits are serving you. And I don't believe habits should come from a place of pressure or punishment. They should really come from a certain clarity from your mind and alignment also with yourself, because you need to have this vision for yourself, and you need to be very aligned with the habits that you choose for yourself to be able to really commit to it on the long run. So the clarity of who you want to become, the clarity about how you want to feel in your body, how you want to feel in your mind, how you want to feel in your life. Because contrary to what a lot of people think, and we tend to think, actually, habits are not really about what you do. Okay, they are, because you need to do them in a consistent form of them, but they are more about who you are becoming, because this is the goal that you're gonna have. This is the vision of yourself, of the self that you see you want to become, that are going to push you to take these habits into your life. And this is something I've been thinking a lot recently, and especially how to don't lose your good resolution that you've put to yourself, how to kind of still responding to some form of schedule for yourself and of a certain discipline that you want to install into your life. We live in a time where everything moves very fast. This is just like that. This is just a fact of our generation. You have a lot of information. You have a lot of misinformation as well. You have, a lot of opinions, a lot of noise around yourself, a lot of expectation from external people. And it's very easy to feel you should be doing more. You should be, be more fast at what you're doing. Be more faster, be better in everything, I really feel it, especially when I'm doing this podcast, and when I have this kind of challenge where I need to find a new subject each week and really write it and reflect towards it, then take the video and stuff, then edit everything, and I'm like, wow, that's actually kind of a rhythm, and you need to be very committed, you need to be very consistent, and that I need to be super planned and super scheduled if I also want to do other things next week, because I'm not only doing my podcast. So you need to be, if you want to grow into something, I think, and this is also something, is growth is not responding well to chaos. You cannot be all over the place. The more you want to grow into something in any kind of sport or something, it would respond more to consistency. And consistency, when you think about it, it doesn't come from motivation. It comes from structure. It comes from solid foundation that you put and that you would just repeat in a consistent manner. So this episode is a bit different than what I'm doing normally, because normally I always took a lot of example based on philosopher, based on quotes, to try to really inspire you and stuff. And this episode, it's also, I feel like, more personal, because what I really want to share with you here, it's the habits that I put in place for myself. And this is all this week, and even a little bit before, because this is actually the continuity of my resolution. But also in order to keep my resolution, in order to tell me like, okay, your Q1 is going to be productive, is going to be like this, you're gonna achieve this, or you need to work on this, or let this go. This is the 5 habits. Like, I feel like the 5 one that I put in place for myself, at least I try to work on for 2026, and I want to share them with you, because I am really hoping, and I really do believe that it can help you to go further and improve some areas of your life that maybe you want to perform better, or to yeah, just to evolve. So I want to share them with you here. So the first one that I want to talk to you, and this is a really important habit for me, especially for someone that kind of has like this really wrong habit, especially in the time that I was kind of like running late. So not in the professional world. That's very strange, by the way, because I was not running late when it kind of like was like for professional meeting and stuff. But every time it's coming like to my friends, to like my partner, my family and stuff, I don't know if it's something that is cultural. And in the French culture, I don't want to accuse French to be late, but to be honest, we have this thing. I think, for instance, when you organize a party at your place or a cute dinner and stuff, and you tell to people come at 8:30, you kind of expect them to arrive at 9. If there are some friends that look at that, correct me if I'm wrong, but arriving at 8:30, no one's does, because everyone is gonna arrive like with 30 minutes late, and it kind of tell you, okay, 8:30 to arrive at 9. But whatever. So not my partner is Japanese, so time it's also very important in Japan, like, you know, schedule, like I'm more scheduled. And I really had also to work on this notion of time. But what I mean when I'm talking about this habit around time and about time management, you know, you have this very famous, even in business, you have, sure you heard about this a lot, but time is really perceived as like the ultimate resources for your business. You know, time is money, time is key. You always have this little quotes. But I'm thinking about time in a more general manner, and, you know, really back to the premise of time and the importance of maybe schedule and of discipline around sleep, around routine, you know, put in place learning, workouts, you know, kind of a routine around my time, more organizing basically my time to create this notion of stability, or actually this feeling of stability, and also create a momentum for things, for each thing. And also really to try to really stop to use time as an excuse, because sometimes I feel I'm doing it to myself, or I don't really have time to do this, or, you know, or, no, I don't take the time to, and really start to kind of like designing more my agenda to really put like time into it, to take the time for things I love and like people I love and like things I need to be present in terms of business, in terms of relationship. And I really think, you know, when I'm talking about habits, but building the right habits also means choosing stability over intensity. And this is something I try to tell myself in 2026 especially. So it's really also having this notion of time and time management, and, you know, really this idea of planning the night before or planning before executing things. And honestly, winter is quiet month, February, even March. I think, you know, before spring, I think this is the best season to talk about this notion of time in general, because when you think about winter, in winter there is really less noise, and this is a month that really asks you to kind of slow down without even realizing it. And so you can have really this opportunity to observe in the beginning of the year, in this first cold month. I think also in that stillness, and if you start to change a little bit and took new habits, put them in place, it's more in this like stillness where you're more with your thoughts and with kind of a return to yourself, like where habits are going to become more visible with the time and growing. And you would, you know, just start noticing how you start your morning, how you move your body, how you respond to discomfort, how you spend your energy, for instance. And take this time in, especially in winter, especially in this month, to reflect on this. So that was really my first habit, and the first thing I really reflect and try to reflect myself on for, you know, for this beginning of March. So the second habit that I want to share with you, it's actually the habit of commitment. I mean, for me, it's very important because I'm kind of like doing this podcast, and this is something new for me, and I just started. And I just really need to pick up and stick to the plan, even if it's not my first occupation, my first, you know, thing, but this is something I really love to do, and I really want to commit to it and be very into it. And it's, you know, sometimes it's just, I mean, I'm recording in the weekend right now. I mean, I don't have really weekend, but I really don't care, because I just want to share this with you. And, you know, and I really think like sometimes, you know, it's very important, especially if you are passionate about something, and just take the time to do it. And I personally do really love to write. I do really love to to speak, to reflect on ideas, and that really I love to share that with people as well. So this is something I choose, and even if you request me time, and every day I'm looking to CEOs, to leaders coach, I make my research, I read books, but this is something I love, and I'm really passionate about doing this. So I do it, but I just realize it's always the same. First 2 months is fun because you just start creating. Then it feels maybe a bit repetitive, and it can feel sometimes hard because you don't feel the thing are really picking up as you want them to, not going as fast as you expect them to be. So it's, you have to work on patience, and you have to work a lot on this notion of commitment. And when you have, whether you're creating a business, whether in sport, or when you want to see improvements or things, you really have to also tell yourself that no matter what, and even if you don't see the progress, even if you don't see anything coming on the moment, even if you are not doing a diet or something, and you don't see the little thing, you don't whatever, kind of be very frustrating. Just really think that you need to stick to a plan. The plan gonna work if you stick to it, and don't start to negotiate with your emotion, how you feel. I'm not saying if you're in extreme pain, do something that would make things go worse, but it just, if you have this little headache, don't have the motivation to do something. Sometimes I really don't have the motivation to film, like right now it's Saturday, I have plenty of other things to do, and I feel, a bit ashamed to put myself in the camera, and it takes motivation to sit in the office and know that I've been writing this episode, took me maybe 2 hours to write it, and then to record, and I think it's always the same. I'm saying it, but I'm really happy, and it's my own choice to do. But what I mean is just, a lot of people think putting content online is something that is very like this, and there is no work behind because the work is basically invisible, right? But don't realize, I think, how people that are doing podcasts, that are doing things online. I mean, I'm not talking about people that are maybe doing a 1-minute dance and they are just having cute face and just going viral. But even these people, if they want to keep a certain status, they would have to be really committed. They would have to produce a lot at the end, because this is how work our world right now. It's, you don't become famous for one little thing and then it keeps you famous. If you really want to have this snowball effect, if you really want to make an impact on things, you need to be extremely consistent in terms of work, because this is how works the algorithm in general. And I'm talking about right now, I'm creating content, but it could be really also about a certain sport. Actually, this is an all area of your life. It's be committed to something. It could be in business. If you want to work in a certain type of area, if you want to enter a certain business, you need to be really committed in your research. You need to go in that direction. And I think commitment, for me, it's a habit that I really want to be really in, and don't negotiate with my emotion, and to be very disciplined into the thing I have to do. And on this notion, not that there is something deeply grounded about doing one thing consistently. If you really start doing it, and if it's gonna build trust with your own self, because it's gonna make you trust that you can do this thing and that you're not giving up on yourself. And self-trust change everything, because once you stop negotiating with yourself, when you stop negotiating with your potential, you stop abandoning yourself when things are getting hard or when things are getting boring. And habits and consistency become a form of self-respect. So eventually, sometimes, the most important habits to have is simply to be consistent and showing up. You need to really become accountable for things, and showing up even when you don't want to do something, even when you don't feel to do something, even when you don't want to do a certain task because you feel no one is really believing in you, or this is very hard, or you're not gonna be able to achieve it. No, you need to really show up for yourself and trust yourself, and and show up to learn something new. Show up when you don't feel ready for something, when you feel ashamed to do something, when you feel you might not have the background to do something or the legitimacy to do something. Just show up when you don't feel ready. Show up when you don't see the progress, because it will come. So the third habit I want to share with you, and that I talked to you a bit in my episode Resilience Through Stillness, and it's actually the ability of emotional contentment. I'm someone that tends to be very much more emotional, I would say. You see me like this, you think I may be very strong and or whatever, but I'm someone that is also very emotional into things, and it could be really you would see on my face if something went wrong, or for me it's very hard to hide my emotion. It's something I'm very spontaneous, and it's something for me that it's really hard to keep a very stoic face and don't show my emotion, because it's a really hard thing for me. It's a very hard exercise. I really realized it, and especially last year, because I lived 4 months in Japan, and I know this is something very strong in the Japanese culture, but also sometimes very considered as a virtue, to be able to not really show your emotion. And I really learned about maybe more of the power of stillness, and this is why I also made an episode about this. But in the Japanese culture, I feel quietness also really means not necessarily like showing your emotion, and quietness in the Japanese philosophy, it's really this refocus on your goals. And why I really want to take this as a habit for myself as well, it's because I really feel in life, if you want to be successful, or if you're dealing with, or because of your work, you're dealing with really intense situation, I really think in this situation, not oversharing stress or frustration, especially if you have a position of a CEO, a high management position, if you have your own company and stuff. This is very important, not oversharing your stress to people and your frustration. And you really want to avoid any type of chaos, and you really don't want to affect any of your employee emotion as well, or any of the people you're working with emotion as well. So in my opinion, it's very important to be able to reset internally, especially in business. I think it's very key, and really stay composed externally when you're dealing with extremely stressful situation, or when you don't agree with someone as well. And don't really let your emotion leak into leadership or decision making. I think calm should be a strategy, and that you can really train it as a habit. I'm saying this because I'm actually thinking about my dad also about this, and he really has this really strong internalization of thing, and to really keep it stoic. And every time I saw him in business and conversation, but also externally with people, and he's someone that really know how to keep things internally, and I never see him very annoyed or very stressed about something. He really keep everything. And I think in the question of my dad is also a question of this is his personality a bit as well, so it's kind of for him more easily to do, because me it's very different than my personality. Spontaneous, I would tend to be maybe more intense, more high intensity. But this is also a type of people, and then you cannot go, I think, completely against your own self, so it's just something I really want to work on, and I want to develop in terms of more leadership skills, and have this kind of more stoic mindset and stoic approach when you come to business. But it doesn't mean that I don't want to keep my personality and be spontaneous. I mean, I would be spontaneous whatever in my life, because this is me, and that's me. So I cannot just pretend, everything is fine, or when I need to say something, generally I just say whatever. But I'm trying to work on it, so this is a habit I say to myself. So the fourth habit that I want to also share with you, and this is something I always take this approach into my life. I mean, and I think I always been taking this approach in my life, but this is something I really remind to myself to do. It's to begin to act like the person you want to become. And that's why every time I tell myself while growing up, and every time I'm telling myself right now in my life, is Emma, don't be lost, and always have a direction, always have a dream where you always have a goal where you want to see yourself, like always have a model example. I always took role models, whether into creative field, into business. I always take person that I want to aspire to become. And there is like the sentence that I already tell you in like precedently, and like this is of the psychologist Mel Robbins, and she said this sentence. I don't remember exactly the interview, but I think I've been going through all the internet, so I'm pretty sure you hear about it. But she said, act like the person you want to become. Like she clarifies it. Like she said, it's not like fake it until you make it. It is intentional. This is something that it's intentional, comes from your inner guide. And this is really this idea of consciously enacting the behavior of your future self, how you're gonna see yourself in the future, how you wanna act, and enacting this behavior. And make sure that your mind's, and actually it's gonna come naturally, but like, your mind is gonna record this action that you do and that you take in daily basis, and in turns begin to recalibrate its relationship with you and the person that you are. And this principle and seeing things like this, I think it's fundamental, and because, really the mind is primary catalyst for change in life in general. So the world you construct around yourself originates first within your thoughts, and your capacity to imagine and your willingness to project yourself forward and to the person you want to become. So if your ambition is to arrive to this certain position, climb this certain ladder, or have your own business, have your company, become a CEO, you must start acting like this. It's, dress as one, comport yourself as really the person as you want to become. And once again, I'm gonna take my dad as an example. So if one day he's watching this episode, it would be really into this episode, but whatever. I didn't know my habits would make me think about my dad in some ways, but what I mean by this is while growing up, like my dad has he still has, but an important position in the company and whatever. But I recall him each day to dress in suits, to go to work, really well suited, going to the office, going to his work environment, and when he was coming back home in the evening, he would then just dress casually. But during the day, he would be very suited and dressed to go to work. And this is what I mean. This distinction really matters. And in any type of situation in your life, I really do think that you must act with, deliberate intention as well. I mean, this is the same with any profession you go for in your life. It's also in the of your reading, of your acting in general. Like, for instance, if you want to become a lawyer, you're gonna be starting to study about it, but you also need maybe to do your own research. And if you really, it's more easy to maybe also study the first year as a lawyer, but then when you really need to do the work and that it become your entire life, from the right beginning, that this profession would require a certain level of vocabulary, that this profession would require to write well, and a certain love for reading in general, because you would have to learn a lot of articles, types of law, and you need to have this kind of love from the beginning. You need to be aware of this and go into that direction. And this works the same with any type of profession. If you want to work in finance, for instance, you need to familiarize yourself with the markets, the mechanism of the Fed, investment instruments in general, how to invest, the different leverage you can make, what are the different markets, what are the different types of investment that you can make, what is the notion of risk, like all the also different currency, and maybe you learn about Bitcoin, learn about gold, learn about different currency as well in the market. But you need to have a certain test about economy, about learning markets, about observing microeconomy in the world in general. And every element that you're gonna do, every little habit that you're gonna maybe start reading about, everything that maybe you're gonna start a subscription to something, maybe you're gonna be part of a group, but anything that you're taking towards this direction is going to push yourself, to push your future self towards this direction in general. So I think that's very important, that this notion of acting like the person that you want to become, because it's also be part of the environment that you want to be within, or the small circle that you want to be within. Make sure that this is people that bring you towards something or towards the level that you want to be in. But that is also a different notion, because sometimes relationship and business can be, if you are someone that is more competitive, that is more into business, maybe you might need relationships that are more soft and, also make you flourish into a certain way, and make you breathe into a certain way, and remember also the importance of a slower life as well, which sometimes can be very important. So, but just be careful to always be with people that you always feel kind of an energy from them. I think this is a question of energy. So yeah, just to come back to our fourth habits. So you can just start to implement these little things every day, and it could be just learn a new thing about this subject that you want to be part of, or about this discipline that you want to start, or just change something maybe in your way of dressing, like dress into suits if you want to work all day and something. This is also something very true in the Japanese culture. It's basically the people, it's very still I mean, this is my 5th time, so it's great. I love Japan also for this, but it's still very in the 80s, 90s in terms of suits and architecture, and this is really cool stuff about that, I think, because, you know, in Japan you can find this kind of like microchip cities with big building lights and very futuristic neon and stuff, but at the same time you find something kind of vibe very from the 90s, and everyone dressing into suits and everyone dressing according to work he's going to do. And I think this is very cool. I really love that. This is my vibe. I'm a very old soul. I'm very old mind. I really love everything that is from the 90s, the 70s, 80s, whatever. This is again completely different from what I'm talking about. I'm just taking like dress according to your profession, dress according to where you want to go, where you see your future self. I think this is very important. This is very tremendous and crucial. So this 5th habit I have, and I really want to talk to you because I think it's also important. At least for me, it's a very important habit to have. It's the habit around movement. I mean, I know you might listen about this habit a lot because, I mean, people constantly talk a lot about the importance of movement. This is very part of our generation. I think people bring that back, you know, and, you know, when people are counting their steps and stuff, every time with my mom, 10,000 steps. Yeah, so just the habits of really daily movement, I think it's very important. Take this habit to really move your body every day. It could be just a quick walk. And sometimes you might not have the motivation. Sometimes it's much more harder to really take the habit to really move your body and implement this movement into your life, because it might be cold outside, because you don't really want to go for this run, because you don't really feel the motivation, because you're too tired, because you're gonna have your period, because, you know, a lot of things. And honestly, if you're a girl and you have a very strong period that I really can understand, the non-motivation, we also have hormonal cycles that are very making the motivation becoming much more harder to be very active into things. But try to just do some repetitively, even if it's just a 10-minute walk when you get a break time during the day. And I like to see things this way, and I think this is a very stoic way to see, but think that physical discipline is actually the first step towards mental discipline. So feeling well, performing well. I like to tell that to myself and to have this idea of this sequence that spirals upward. Also remember that your movement through the day and also through the week or whatever, but doesn't need to be extreme. Sometimes we got correlation with extreme and movement that are related together, but sometimes the smallest, just a consistent movement that you do daily, that you do weekly. But if you do something in repetition, it's much more valuable than something that you would do, an extreme thing that you would do once in a month or once in a week. So, you know, the strongest people or something are not the most extreme people. I mean, if you think about David Goggins, it could be the exception because he is very extreme into what he is doing. He's an extreme endurance athlete, and he's very pushing himself very hard. But something that is also very true about him is he's doing very extreme challenges, but he's also very consistent in his repetition. And I think consistency is the thing that really brings him where he is also right now in his life, and, you know, at this point of doing very intense challenges to himself. So yeah, so just do something, just do a movement in that is in accordance with yourself, and just move your body, and that's something that you feel you like to do. So yeah, so I think this is almost the end. And remember that the habits I just shared with you are some habits that are very personal, and that myself I'm trying to integrate in my life for 2026, for the coming month. But it doesn't mean it's habits that you have to implement for yourself. And you might choose to focus on different habits for yourself, or you might choose to focus on only one habit. I just give you the 5 habits that matter to me the most where I am right now in my life, and this is just an invitation to reflect on habits in general. You know, just don't lose like your good resolution, and just to have these little goals also for yourself. But it could also be, for instance, I don't know where you are in your life, and it could be actually also the habit of slowing down, or the habit of saying no to things. You know, it also could be like just the way of reflecting on your habits, your actual habits right now, and just, you know, removing some of them because you feel that they are draining you or they don't align anymore with you. So yeah, so that's the thing, like, because building the right habits can also meanings really letting go the wrong ones that are not matching with you anymore. So I just wanted to share with you that the goal really with habits is the fact that they are building a system that carry them through season of doubt, through season of discomfort where you're not feeling your best. And if you really have this plan for yourself, this little habit that you put in place, you would do them every day, no matter what. And I think that's very important, and that would really able to support the system into you without even realizing it. You don't need to change everything at once. You really don't need to have 5 habits. You don't need to reinvent your entire life. You really just need to have one habit that, you know, would bring to you maybe closer alignment into your decision, into your life in general. And whatever, no matter what, think if you are going towards your goal, if you are going towards like this direction, like things are happening, like things are moving. Life, it's always reinventing itself. Like life is not static, so you would always learn things day by day. You would always change. Winter teaches us this very well, right? When everything is more quiet, and so if you're in a season in your life where things feel maybe more slow, more quiet, a bit maybe sometimes unclear, it's okay, don't rush it, because this might be the season where the foundation, your foundation, are actually built. And this is very important. So I want to leave you with this thought. Habits are not about becoming someone else. Remember this, like you are very unique the way you are. They are really about returning to yourself steadily, intentionally, and honestly. And when you build habits from that place, I can promise you something, it would really feel grounded. So this is Emma, this is Karen Talks. Build the right habits, not to impress anyone, but create that life that for you feels stable, aligned, and true to yourself. Quietly, consistently, with intention. Anyway, I hope this episode has helped you. As always, thanks again for watching. If you like it, like, subscribe, comment, share this episode with your friends, with your father, with your brother, with your family, with your partner. So love you and kisses.